The bride collapses at the altar, and the Mafia boss takes her to the sacristy. But while cleaning her makeup, he discovers a scar and a completely different identity than the one he was promised. The sham becomes explosive. He didn't get a wife. He got an assassin marked by the past. If you like stories like this, watch till the end, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're listening from. St. Ignatius Loyola Cathedral was packed on that sweltering July afternoon in New York City. The air conditioning fought a losing battle against the suffocating heat that seeped through the stained glass windows, mingling with the cloying scent of the white lilies that decorated every corner of the altar. Ava Miller watched it all with wide eyes, hidden beneath a French lace veil that had cost more than she would make in 5 years. Her hands were trembling so badly that the bouquet of white roses shook visibly, and she had to clench her fingers around the stems until she felt the thorns dig into her skin through her silk gloves. On the other side of the altar, Liam Lockwood waited with the impeccable posture of a man born to command. Tall, with broad shoulders and a chiseled jaw, he wore an Italian suit that probably cost the equivalent of 3 people's annual salaries. His dark eyes showed no emotion as he watched the bride approach down the center aisle. For him, this wasn't a wedding. It was a corporate merger, a strategic alliance between Lockwood Enterprises and the Hayes Group, 2 of the country's largest real estate development firms, which had been fighting over contracts and properties for more than 20 years. Ava was not the person who was supposed to be there. That truth pulsed, with every frantic beat of her heart as she walked down the aisle, feeling the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on her. The real bride, Isabella Hayes, the only legitimate daughter of Arthur Hayes, had run off the night before with her secret boyfriend, a broke musician with dreams too big to fit into the patriarch's plans. Ava was just the distant cousin, the daughter of Arthur's poor sister, the one who had grown up in the shadows of the Hayes mansion, working as the family's personal assistant, invisible and insignificant. When Isabella disappeared, leaving only a farewell letter. Arthur Hayes had panicked. The wedding could not be cancelled. There were contracts signed, stocks traded, promises made to shareholders. The union between the families meant billions in joint projects, the absolute domination of the New York City real estate market. To cancel would be to admit weakness, to give the Lockwoods an excuse to break the deal, and worse, to expose the scandal of the runaway daughter to all of high society. So, in the early hours of that July morning, Arthur had dragged Ava from her small room in the back of the mansion and delivered his sentence. She would be the replacement. Ava had tried to argue, to plead, to explain that this was insane, that Liam Lockwood would discover the fraud in seconds. But Arthur had been ruthless. He brought in an entire team of makeup artists, hairstylists, and image consultants. For 6 hours they transformed Ava into a near-perfect copy of Isabella. Her hair was dyed from its natural brown to Isabella's golden blonde. Blue contact lenses covered her dark brown eyes. And then came the makeup. Layers upon layers of foundation, concealer, contour, powder, so much product that Ava's face felt like a wax mask. The goal was twofold: to make her look like Isabella, and most importantly to hide the scar. The scar. Ava instinctively brought a hand to her face, but the veil stopped her from touching her skin. The mark ran down her entire left cheek to her jawline, a silvery, jagged record of second-degree burns. It had happened 15 years ago, when she was only 12. A fire had devastated the small house where she lived with her mother on the outskirts of Queens. The fire had started in the kitchen during the night and spread quickly through the old wooden structure. Ava had woken up choking on smoke, the flames already licking the walls of her room. She had screamed, cried, tried to reach the door, but the heat was unbearable. That's when he appeared, a 17-year-old boy, tall and fearless, who had jumped through the window, shattering the glass with his own fists. He had scooped her up, covered her face with his own shirt, and carried her through the flames to safety. Ava vaguely remembered his face through the smoke, his dark eyes full of determination, the strong hands that held her as the ceiling collapsed behind them. He had left her in the arms of the firefighters and disappeared into the chaos of the night, an anonymous hero who had saved her life. Ava's mother had died in the fire, and the girl was left with the scar as a permanent reminder of that night of horror. After the tragedy, it was Arthur Hayes who had reluctantly taken in his orphaned niece, more out of family obligation than compassion. Ava grew up in the mansion like a shadow, always aware that she was there out of charity, always being reminded that she wasn't good enough, pretty enough or refined enough to be truly part of the Hayes family. The scar became the symbol of everything that separated her from Isabella. While her cousin was pampered and paraded at high society parties, Ava was kept in the background, hidden, ashamed. Now covered in pounds of makeup and a thick veil, Ava walked toward her destiny. Her uncle had made it very clear. If she refused, she would be thrown out of the house without a penny. She had nowhere to go, no one in the world. So there she was, about to commit the most absurd deception of her life, marrying a man who didn't even know her real name. Liam watched the bride approach and frowned slightly. Something was off. He had known Isabella Hayes for years, since they were teenagers when their families began negotiating this union. She had always been exuberant, confident, even arrogant in her beauty. The woman walking toward him was trembling like a leaf in the wind. Her steps were hesitant, almost tripping on the voluminous dress. And there was something in her posture, in the way she kept her head down, that didn't match the Isabella he knew. But Liam pushed the concerns aside. Bridal nerves, perhaps. Or maybe she had finally realized the magnitude of what this wedding meant. It wasn't a union for love. They both had always known that. It was business. It was power. It was what their families expected of them. Liam didn't believe in foolish fairy tale romances. He believed in contracts, in stocks, in strategy. This marriage would give Lockwood Enterprises access to the properties the Hayes Group controlled in Lower Manhattan, and in return the Hayes family would gain the sustainable building technology that had made the Lockwoods market leaders. It was a fair, cold, calculated exchange. Ava finally reached the altar. Her Uncle Arthur, who had walked her down the aisle playing the part of her father, squeezed her arm with excessive force before letting her go, a silent warning not to screw things up. Ava nearly stumbled as she stepped up the single stair that separated her from Liam. He instinctively reached out to steady her, and in that brief touch, he felt her hands were ice-cold even through the gloves. Father Michael, an elderly man with a trembling voice, began the ceremony. His words echoed through the cathedral, speaking of love, commitment, the sanctity of matrimony. Ava could barely hear him. Her heart was pounding so loudly it drowned out all other sounds. Sweat trickled down her back, making the dress stick uncomfortably to her skin. The heavy makeup was starting to melt in the heat, and she could feel the foundation slipping, revealing millimeters of the scarred skin underneath. From his position, Liam observed the bride's profile. Even with the veil, he could see something was different. Isabella always wore makeup, but never this heavy. It looked almost theatrical, exaggerated, and she was still trembling. Was she sick? He almost asked, almost broke protocol, but the priest's voice continued inexorable. Then came the moment for the vows. The priest turned to Ava first. Isabella Hayes, do you take Liam Lockwood to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and to honor, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, until destiny do you part? Ava opened her mouth. No sound came out. She tried again, feeling all eyes fixed on her, feeling the weight of the lie crushing her chest. This was her chance to expose everything, to scream the truth, to end this farce. But then she saw Arthur Hayes's murderous glare from the front row, saw the veiled threat in his eyes, and the words died in her throat. She began, but her voice failed. The entire cathedral seemed to spin. The lights from the crystal chandeliers above multiplied, dancing in her blurred vision. The scent of lilies became unbearable, nauseating, suffocating. Ava felt her legs give way. No, not now, she thought desperately, but her body wouldn't obey. The lack of air, the heat, the stress, the weight of the makeup, it all converged in a single moment of total collapse. Her knees buckled. It wasn't a delicate stumble that could be disguised. It was a complete sudden fall, as if someone had cut the strings holding her upright. The bouquet slipped from her hands and landed on the marble floor with a dull thud. Ava felt herself plummeting, the the world spinning in slow motion, and then strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Liam had acted on pure instinct. The moment he saw the bride start to fall, his athletic reflexes kicked in. He caught her mid-air, holding her against his chest, and immediately noticed her dead weight. Ava was completely unconscious. The entire congregation erupted in murmurs and gasps. Arthur Hayes shot up from his seat, his face pale, but a strange expression crossed his features, something between shock and a calculated fear. Liam looked down at the fainted woman in his arms. That's when he noticed it. As he held her, his hand had brushed against her face, and his fingers met a strange texture. The makeup wasn't just makeup. It was a thick layer, almost like a paste covering the skin. Why would anyone wear so much product? Even for a wedding, this was excessive, almost like a mask. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Liam made a split-second decision. Ignoring the priest who was trying to ask what to do, ignoring the growing murmurs of the crowd, he lifted Ava into his arms as if she weighed nothing and started walking. Not toward the main exit, but to the private sacristy at the back of the cathedral. His steps were firm, decisive, and no one dared to stop him. Arthur Hayes took a step forward, opening his mouth to protest, but his wife grabbed his arm, whispering something urgent in his ear. He hesitated, then sat back down, but his face was tense, his fists clenched on his knees. Liam pushed the sacristy door open with his shoulder and entered, kicking it shut behind him with a precise move that made the heavy wood slam. The room was small, decorated with antique furniture and faded Persian rugs. There was a dark red velvet sofa against the wall, and it was there that Liam carefully laid the unconscious bride. He loosened his tie, feeling the heat that was starting to bother him, and watched the woman lying before him. In the natural light filtering through the narrow window, the artificiality of the makeup was even more obvious. There was something deeply unsettling about it, a sense of fraud he couldn't explain. Ava began to stir slowly, a low moan escaping her lips. Her eyes fluttered open, confused at first, then wide with panic, as she realized where she was and who was beside her. Liam Lockwood was watching her with an intensity that made her instinctively shrink back against the sofa. "Who are you?" Liam asked, his voice low and controlled, but with a steel thread in it that wouldn't tolerate lies. "And don't give me Isabella Hayes, because I've known Isabella for years and you are not her." Ava felt the world collapse again. How did he know? The makeup was supposed to have hidden everything. Her hands flew to her face instinctively, and that's when she felt it. The moisture. The sweat had dissolved some of the foundation on her temple and forehead. She touched her cheek in fear and felt the uneven texture of the scar beginning to show through the cosmetic mask. She started, but she didn't know how to continue. To confess would mean ruining everything, but lying to this man as he looked at her with those eyes that seemed to see through all her defenses felt impossible. Liam didn't wait for an answer. He turned, grabbed a clean towel from a nearby dresser, and wet it in a basin of water that had been prepared for the priest to wash his hands before the ceremony. Then, with decisive movements, he approached her again. "I'm going to give you one chance," he said calmly, but there was danger in that calm. "You can tell me the truth now, or I can find out for myself. Either way, I'm going to know who you really are." Ava looked at the damp towel in his hands and understood his intention. Panic seized her. "No," she whispered, bringing her hands to her face to protect it. "Please, don't." But Liam was already closer. With one hand he gently but firmly grasped her wrists, pulling her defensive hands away. With the other, he pressed the damp towel against her cheek. Ava squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the cool water dissolve the makeup, feeling years of shame and secrecy being exposed layer by layer. Liam wiped the towel again, more firmly this time, removing the heavy contour, the excessive powder, the industrial-grade foundation. With each movement, more of her real skin was revealed. And then he stopped. The towel hung in midair, stained with beige and brown, as he stared in disbelief at what he had just uncovered. There, crossing her left cheek and running down to her jawline, was an old burn scar. The skin was silvery, uneven, rippled by the tissue that had healed imperfectly. And there was something else. Just below her left ear, now exposed where the makeup had been removed, was a small tattoo, a delicate bluebird, almost childlike in its design. It was something Ava had gotten at 15, a desperate attempt to reclaim some control over her own body after the accident. The silence in the sacristy was absolute. Ava kept her eyes closed, tears beginning to stream down her face, mixing with the remnants of makeup. She expected rejection, anger, maybe even violence, but what came was something completely unexpected. "You," Liam whispered, and there was something in his voice Ava never would have expected to hear. It wasn't anger, it was recognition. "You're the girl from the fire." Ava's eyes snapped open, wide with shock. "What?" she managed to say, her voice hoarse. Liam released her wrists and took a step back, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that betrayed his usually perfect composure. 15 years ago, Queens. A house caught fire in the middle of the night. I was coming back from a party with friends when we saw the flames. I went in to see if anyone was trapped inside and found a girl, unconscious in her room. I got her out before the roof collapsed. Ava couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her savior, the mysterious teenager who had vanished into the night, was standing right in front of her, 15 years later, about to marry her under completely absurd circumstances. "You," she managed to say, her voice failing. "It was you who saved me." Liam nodded slowly, still processing the impossibility of the coincidence. "I thought about you a lot over the years, wondered if you were okay, if you'd recovered. When I read in the papers that there was a fatality in the fire, I was afraid I'd been too late. But you were alive, and now you're here." The revelation hung between them like an invisible bridge connecting past and present. Ava didn't know what to say, how to process it. The man who had saved her life was the same one she was about to fraudulently marry. Fate couldn't be crueler or stranger. "So," Liam said finally, his voice regaining that tone of control, though there was still an emotional undercurrent. "I'm going to ask again, and this time I want the whole truth. Who are you? And where is Isabella Hayes?" Ava took a deep breath. There was no more running. The mask had fallen, literally and metaphorically. Then, with a voice that trembled but grew steadier, as she spoke, she told him everything. She told him about being the poor cousin, about Isabella running away the night before, about Arthur forcing her to take his daughter's place under the threat of being left on the street with nothing. She told him about the hours of preparation, the thick makeup to hide her true identity, the fear that had paralyzed her at the altar. Liam listened to it all in silence, his face an impenetrable mask. When Ava finished, he remained quiet for a long moment, processing every word. Then, surprising her again, he took the damp towel and gently finished cleaning her face, removing every last trace of the sham. "Ava Miller," he said, testing her real name for the first time. "That's your name?" She nodded, unable to speak. "Well, Ava Miller," Liam continued, and there was a new determination in his eyes. "It seems we have a very interesting situation on our hands, and this time I'll be the one calling the shots." Ava held her breath as Liam paced the sacristy, his hands clasped behind his back, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. She remained on the velvet sofa, feeling strangely exposed, without the mask of makeup, but also relieved. 15 years of carrying that scar like a dirty secret, and now it was there, on display, before the one man who had a right to see it, because he had been part of that terrible night. He finally stopped pacing and turned to face her. "We have two options here, Ava," he said, his voice firm but not cruel. "The first is, I walk out that door, expose your uncle's fraud in front of the entire congregation, annul this ridiculous wedding, and let the corporate fallout destroy the Hayes Group. Your uncle would lose everything, his contracts, his reputation, possibly even his company." Ava felt her blood run cold. "And the second option?" "The second," Liam continued, crossing his arms over his chest, "is we go through with the wedding, but not on Arthur Hayes's terms, on my terms." Ava blinked, confused. "I don't understand. Why would you do that? You hold all the cards now. You can ruin my uncle. You can walk away from a union you clearly don't want. Liam moved closer, crouching down to be at eye level with her. When he spoke, his voice was softer, but there was an intensity to it that made her heart race. 15 years ago, I saved a girl from a fire. That night marked me more than you can imagine. I was 17, full of certainty about who I was and what I wanted to be. My father was grooming me to take over the company, teaching me that business was war, that compassion was weakness. And then I saw those flames, heard those screams, and something inside me just reacted. I didn't think. I just acted. He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. After that night, I read about the fire in the papers. I learned there was a fatality. I thought maybe you hadn't made it, that I'd been too late. That possibility haunted me, so I stopped looking for information. It was easier not to know than to confirm the worst. I convinced myself you were okay somewhere, living your life. And now here you are, not just alive, but being used as a pawn in your uncle's dirty game. Ava felt tears burn her eyes, but refused to let them fall. So you want to marry me out of pity, out of some imaginary debt to the past? No, Liam answered firmly, standing up. It's not pity. It's an opportunity. Think about it, Ava. Your uncle offered you up as a sacrifice, expecting you to be just a temporary substitute, a fraud he could control. But what if we turn this around? What if you become my real wife, not his fake one? I get the corporate alliance I need without having to deal with Isabella Hayes, who frankly has always struck me as insufferable. And you get freedom from Arthur's control, social standing, financial security. Ava stood up too, feeling a little dizzy. This is crazy. You don't even know me. And I certainly don't know you beyond a hazy memory from 15 years ago. Then we'll get to know each other, Liam said simply. Arranged marriages have worked for centuries precisely because people learn to know each other afterward. The difference is, this one will be on our terms, not our parents' or uncle's. No one will use us as chess pieces. Ava wanted to argue, to say it was absurd, but a part of her, the part that had lived for years as invisible, disposable, treated like a burden, recognized the truth in his words. This was her chance to finally have some control over her own life. And Arthur, she asked. What do we do about him? Liam smiled, and there was something predatory in that smile. Leave Arthur to me. He thought he could fool me, hand me a fake bride and get away with it. Well, he's about to learn that deceiving Liam Lockwood has consequences, but those consequences won't be the collapse of his company. They'll be far more personal. Before Ava could respond, urgent knocks sounded on the sacristy door. Arthur Hayes's tense voice came from the other side. Lockwood, we need to talk. The wedding is off, obviously. Let's handle this like civilized businessmen. Liam looked at Ava, one eyebrow raised in a silent question. It was her decision, Ava realized. He was giving her the power to choose. She could accept his offer and go through with the wedding, or she could back down, let Liam expose everything, and face the consequences. Ava thought of all the years she had spent in that mansion, being invisible, being constantly reminded she wasn't good enough. She thought of Isabella, who had everything served on a silver platter and still ran away, leaving Ava to clean up the mess. She thought of the teenager who had walked through fire to save her when no one else cared, and then she thought of the man in front of her, offering her not charity, but a partnership, a chance to be seen, a chance to matter. She nodded. Let's get married. Liam's smile was genuine this time, reaching his eyes. He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. Then let's put on a show for your uncle. Liam threw open the sacristy door abruptly, causing Arthur Hayes to stumble backward. The patriarch had brought two of his top assistants, burly men who were clearly there for intimidation, but Liam showed no fear. He simply held Ava's hand tighter and said, "The wedding isn't cancelled, Hayes. It's just beginning with the truth." Arthur paled. "Lockwood, be reasonable. There's been a misunderstanding. Isabella is ill, and Ava was kind enough to try and help. But obviously this can't proceed." "Obviously it can, and it will," Liam cut in. "Ava Miller is now my chosen bride. Not Isabella. Ava. And I'm going to marry her today, in front of everyone here. You are going to go back to that congregation and announce that there has been a last-minute change in the bride, but that the wedding will proceed, and then you will sit down and watch as I say my vows to the woman you've treated like trash all these years. Arthur's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But the contracts specify Isabella, the shares that are to be transferred. They will be transferred to my wife, whoever she may be, Liam said coldly. The contracts specify a Hayes daughter. Well, Ava is as much a daughter of the Hayes family as Isabella, the daughter of the sister you conveniently forget when it suits you. I'm sure your lawyers can find a way to make the paperwork function. Or would you prefer I expose to 300 of the most powerful businessmen in New York that you tried to swindle me with a substitute? Arthur's face turned red with rage, but he had no choice. Liam was right. Exposing the fraud would be worse than simply adjusting the narrative. He gave a stiff nod. I'll make the announcement, but this will have consequences, Lockwood. Oh, I'm counting on it, Liam replied with a smirk. Now go, and Hayes, he added as the man turned. If I ever hear that you've treated Ava with anything less than respect from this day forward, I will personally ensure that every single one of your ongoing projects runs into regulatory hurdles. Understood? Arthur didn't answer, but his expression said it all. He stalked out of the sacristy, his assistant scurrying after him. Ava let out the breath she'd been holding. He's going to hate me forever. Let him, Liam said, turning to her. His opinion no longer matters. He released her hand and gently touched the scar on her face, making Ava flinch at the unexpected contact. This scar. How long have you been hiding it? Since it happened, Ava admitted quietly. My uncle made it clear it made me unacceptable to society, that I should keep it covered, stay in the background at events. Isabella could be shown off, but not me. I was the imperfect cousin, the one who survived but with a price too ugly to be seen. Liam let his hand fall, but his eyes remained on hers. When we go back to that altar, you're not going to wear makeup to cover it. You're going to marry me with your real face. Everyone is going to see who you really are. Ava felt panic rise in her throat. I can't. All those people, the comments, the stares. Let them comment, Liam said firmly. Let them stare. You are not defined by this scar, Ava. You're marked by it, yes, but not defined. And anyone in that congregation who has a problem with it can deal with me directly. Ava wanted to protest more, but the determination in his eyes silenced her. There was something liberating in the idea, even if it was terrifying. For 15 years she had hidden. Maybe it was time to stop. Okay, she agreed, her voice steadier than she felt. Let's do this. Liam gave an approving nod. I'll have someone bring proper cleansing products and a mirror. I imagine you'll want to compose yourself a bit. Not to hide, just to feel ready. Ava agreed, grateful for the consideration. Liam left briefly and returned with one of the wedding coordinators, an efficient middle-aged woman who showed no surprise at the situation. She brought makeup remover wipes, micellar water and basic makeup products. With hands that trembled, only slightly, Ava completely cleaned her face, removing every trace of the transformation into Isabella. Then she applied just a touch of concealer under her eyes and a soft lipstick. When she was done and looked in the mirror, she saw her own face for the first time in years, without the heavy layer of shame on it. The scar was there, undeniable, but somehow it seemed less monstrous than she had always imagined. It was just a part of her story. Liam returned and watched her for a long moment. Beautiful, he said simply. And Ava felt tears threaten again, but this time from a different emotion. Outside the sacristy they could hear Arthur making the announcement. His voice was tense but controlled. Dear guests, there has been a last-minute change. For personal and family reasons, my niece Ava Miller will be taking the role of the bride today. The wedding will proceed as planned. There were confused murmurs, but Arthur spoke louder. Ava is as much a part of this family as any other member, and we are proud to see her join the Lockwood family. The lies were blatant, but New York society was well practiced at swallowing polished lies. There would be gossip, of course, But with Arthur and Liam presenting a united front, no one would dare question it openly. Liam offered Ava his arm. "Ready?" Ava took a deep breath. "Ready." They walked out of the sacristy together. When the cathedral doors opened again and Ava appeared at the altar with Liam, this time without a veil and with her true face exposed, there was a moment of shocked silence. 300 pairs of eyes fixed on her, on the scar that ran down her cheek. Ava wanted to shrink, to hide, but Liam squeezed her hand firmly, anchoring her. And then, surprisingly, it was Liam's mother who stood up first in the congregation. Eleanor Lockwood, a respected matriarch known for her philanthropic work, began to applaud. Slowly, others followed. The applause grew until it filled the entire cathedral. It wasn't applause of mockery or pity. It was acknowledgement. Respect for her courage to stand there, exposed but unashamed. Father Michael, after recovering from his surprise, restarted the ceremony. "Ava Miller, do you take Liam Lockwood to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and to honor, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live?" This time Ava didn't hesitate. "I do." "And you, Liam Lockwood, do you take Ava Miller to be your lawfully wedded wife, to love and to honor, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live?" Liam looked directly into her eyes when he answered. "I do." The priest smiled. "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Liam moved closer, and Ava felt her heart pound. He placed a hand gently on her cheek, his thumb purposely brushing the edge of her scar, and then he kissed her. It was a soft, almost chaste kiss, but it was filled with promise. When they parted, Ava was trembling for entirely different reasons now. The congregation erupted in applause again, and this time Ava managed to smile. Liam laced his fingers through hers, and together they walked down the aisle, now officially husband and wife. Arthur Hayes remained seated, his face a mask of contained rage. Isabella, wherever she was with her musician, would never know the wedding she had missed. And Ava, the invisible cousin, the girl marked by fire, had become Mrs. Lockwood. The reception was held in the garden of the Lockwood Mansion, a historic Gilded Age palace on the Upper East Side, with gardens that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Tables decorated with white and gold flowers dotted the immaculate lawn. An orchestra played classical music, while waiters circulated with trays of champagne and canapes. Ava felt completely out of place in her voluminous wedding dress, conscious of every glance that landed on her scar, every discreet whisper. Liam stayed by her side. The entire time, his presence a constant anchor. He introduced her to shareholders, business partners, and family friends, always with his hand on the small of her back, always making it clear that she wasn't just accepted, she was celebrated. Every time someone showed surprise or discomfort at her appearance, Liam would subtly redirect the conversation, making it impossible for anyone to make a disrespectful comment. Eleanor Lockwood approached them during a lull. She was an elegant woman in her late 50s, with greying hair styled in a chic updo and kind eyes. "Ava, dear," she said, taking her new daughter-in-law's hands. "Welcome to the family. Liam told me a little about your situation. I want you to know that this house is now your home too, and about what happened today." She paused, looking directly at Ava's scar. "You have more courage in your little finger than most of these people have in their entire bodies. I'm proud to call you my daughter." Ava felt tears burn her eyes for the third time that day. She had never received this kind of acceptance, this kind of genuine warmth. "Thank you, Mrs. Lockwood." "Call me Eleanor," the woman corrected with a smile. "We're family now." As Eleanor moved away to greet other guests, Ava turned to Liam. "Your mother is wonderful." "She is," Liam agreed, "and usually an excellent judge of character. If she approves of you, it means something." "And your father?" Ava asked, realizing she hadn't seen much of the Lockwood patriarch. Liam's expression hardened slightly. "My father is on a business trip." Convenient, considering he never really approved of this arranged marriage anyway. He prefers more direct mergers and acquisitions. There's tension between you, Ava observed. Liam shrugged. My father and I have different views on how to run the company. He's old school, believes in aggressive tactics and eliminating the competition. I prefer innovation and strategic partnerships. Eventually, I'll have to take over completely, but for now, we maintain an uneasy truce. Before Ava could reply, Arthur Hayes approached them. His face was flushed, likely from both anger and champagne. Lockwood, he said, ignoring Ava completely. We need to discuss the terms of the contracts. Obviously, there will be necessary amendments. Obviously, Liam agreed coolly. My lawyers will be in touch with yours tomorrow. For now, this is my wedding, Hayes. I suggest you enjoy the party and then go home before you do something you'll regret. Arthur finally looked at Ava, and there was so much venom in his eyes that she involuntarily stepped back. You think you've won, he said quietly, so only the three of them could hear. You think because you married him you're free of me, but you're not. You're still a Hayes, and I don't forget betrayal. There was no betrayal, Liam interrupted, his voice dangerously low. There was survival. Ava did what you forced her to do. Any negative consequences from this situation are entirely your fault. Now step away from my wife before I forget where we are and do something we'll both regret. Arthur hesitated, then backed down. He turned and strode across the garden toward the exit, leaving the reception early. Several other members of the Hayes family followed him, creating a discreet but noticeable exodus. Ava let out a sigh of relief. He's not going to give up easily. He won't, Liam agreed. But he also won't be in a position to do much. The contracts we signed give Lockwood Enterprises significant stakes in several Hayes projects. Arthur will need our cooperation as much as we need his. He may hate the situation, but he's stuck with it. Ava looked around the garden, at the remaining guests who were dancing, talking, drinking, having already absorbed and accepted the day's dramatic turn of events. This all feels so surreal, she admitted. This morning I was a nobody. Now I'm Mrs. Lockwood, wife of one of the most powerful men in New York. Liam turned to face her fully. You were never a nobody, Ava. You were just treated like one. There's a difference. The first rays of sun streamed through the window of the master suite in the Lockwood mansion, illuminating the dark wood furniture and the crystal chandelier hanging from the high ceiling. Ava woke up disoriented, taking a few seconds to remember where she was. The mattress was absurdly comfortable, the satin sheets like clouds against her skin. And then reality hit her. She was in Liam Lockwood's bed, his wife, legally married to him. She turned her head and found the other side of the bed empty, but rumpled. Liam had slept there, maintaining a respectful distance throughout the night. After the reception, they had returned to the mansion exhausted. Liam had made it clear. He had no immediate expectations that she could have her space, but that they needed to keep up appearances. Sleeping in separate rooms on their wedding night would raise questions. So they had shared the bed, both tense, aware of the other's presence, but with no more than necessary contact. Ava got up and walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. On the horizon, New York City was beginning to wake, the first sounds of traffic reaching her, muffled by the distance. She was still wearing only a silk nightgown that Eleanor had left for her the night before, a piece too delicate, too expensive, too beautiful for someone like Ava. The door to the ensuite bathroom opened and Liam emerged, already dressed in slacks and a white button-down shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. He paused when he saw her standing by the window, the morning light silhouetting her through the thin silk. "Good morning," he said, and Ava noticed his voice was a little huskier than usual. "Good morning," she replied, crossing her arms over her chest, suddenly aware of how revealing the nightgown was. Liam approached but kept a respectful distance. "Did you sleep well?" Ava nodded. "Better than I expected, all things considered. And you?" "Reasonably," he paused. "Ava, we need to talk about how this is going to work, our marriage. We can't just improvise day by day." Ava agreed and sat in the armchair by the window, while Liam took a seat on the edge of the bed, facing her. He continued, "Socially, we need to present a solid marriage. That means public appearances together, corporate events, dinners with associates. People will be watching, looking for cracks. especially after the irregular way we got married. I understand, Ava said. I can do that. I've spent years being invisible. I can spend a few being visible if necessary. Liam shook his head. I don't want you to just play the part of a decorative wife. I want you to be genuinely involved. Lockwood Enterprises has several social projects, sustainability initiatives, community programs. My mother leads many of them. She mentioned she's interested in including you if you want. Ava felt a spark of excitement. I'd love that. I've always wanted to do something meaningful, but at Arthur's house I was just the assistant. I copied documents, organized files, nothing important. Do you have a formal education? Liam asked, and there was no judgment in the question, just genuine curiosity. A high school diploma, Ava replied. I wanted to go to college, but Arthur said it would be a waste of money to educate someone like me. So I studied on my own. I read a lot, took some online courses when I could get access to his computer. Liam frowned. That changes now. If you want to go to college, I'll enroll you in any university you choose. If you prefer specific courses, professional training, whatever, you are no longer a prisoner of the limitations Arthur imposed on you. Ava felt emotion tighten her throat. Why are you doing all this? I know you said it's not pity, but there has to be more to it than just a convenient corporate alliance. Liam stood and walked to the window, looking out. When I was 17, I ran into that fire without thinking. It was the first time I acted completely on instinct, without calculating consequences or benefits. My father was furious when he found out. He said I'd been reckless, that I could have been hurt, that dead heroes don't inherit empires. He paused. But that night showed me something about who I really was under all the expectations and pressure. It showed me I was capable of doing the right thing, not just the profitable thing. He turned to face her again. Over the years, I became more and more like my father, cold, calculating, seeing people as assets or liabilities. When I saw you yesterday, collapsing at that altar, covered in makeup like a broken doll, and then discovered who you really were, it was like a shock, a reminder that there's more to life than balance sheets and hostile takeovers. Maybe it's selfish of me, but I feel like saving you again somehow saves me too. Ava stood and walked over to him. So we're two lost people trying to find ourselves. Liam smiled faintly. I suppose so. He held out his hand. We can make this work, Ava. It won't be a fairy tale, but it can be something real, something honest. Ava took his hand. Let's try. The following days unfolded in a whirlwind of activity. Eleanor Lockwood took Ava under her wing, introducing her to the family's various philanthropic projects. There was an affordable housing program that built sustainable homes for low-income families, a community center that offered vocational training, a foundation that supported victims of domestic accidents, ironically echoing Ava's own experience. Ava threw herself into the work with an enthusiasm she hadn't felt in years. She visited construction sites, spoke with program beneficiaries, and participated in planning meetings. Her experience as an assistant, observing years of business operations even from the shadows, proved surprisingly useful. She understood contracts, processes, bureaucracy, and more importantly, she understood what it was like to be invisible, to be discarded, to be seen as less than. This made her effective at connecting with the people the program served. Liam watched her transformation with something close to admiration. At night, when they dined together in the formal dining room, or more casually in the kitchen when Eleanor had retired early, he would listen to her talk about her days with a passion he had never seen in Isabella Hayes. Where Isabella would have complained about having to visit low-income neighborhoods or mingle with construction workers, Ava flourished, finding purpose in every interaction. One evening, 3 weeks after the wedding, they were sitting in Liam's office. He was reviewing contracts while Ava read a book on sustainable urban development she had borrowed from the mansion's impressive library. The silence between them was comfortable, companionable. Have you thought about what you want to study? Liam asked suddenly, looking up from his papers. Ava marked her page and closed the book. Architecture, maybe, or civil engineering. Something that would let me contribute concretely to the building projects, not just organizationally but creatively. Liam smiled. I can see you doing that. You have an eye for design. I noticed in the suggestions you made for the community center. Eleanor was impressed. Ava felt a blush creep up her cheeks. It was just common sense. The people who will use the space know better than any elite architect what they need. Exactly, Liam agreed. And that's why you'd be great at it. He stood up and came to sit beside her on the sofa. Ava, there's something I need to tell you. His serious tone made Ava sit up straighter. What is it? Your uncle is causing trouble. Not openly, but behind the scenes, he's trying to convince Hayes Group shareholders to vote against our partnership. He's claiming I was the one who forced the change of bride, that I manipulated the situation. Ava felt anger boil inside her. He always twists the truth to benefit himself. What can we do? Legally, nothing yet. He has the right to try and influence his own shareholders. But if he keeps it up, I can make things very uncomfortable for him. I have information about certain financial irregularities in some of his projects. Nothing illegal enough for a lawsuit, but enough to tarnish his reputation if leaked to the media. Ava bit her lip. I hate resorting to tactics like that, but I also know that Arthur doesn't respond to kindness. He only understands power. Do what you have to do, Liam. Liam studied her face. Are you sure? He's your uncle, after all. He stopped being my family the moment he forced me to that altar as a sacrifice to save his own skin, Ava said firmly. My family now is you and Eleanor. She paused. And maybe, eventually, anyone who comes after. Liam's eyes widened slightly at the implication. Ava felt her face heat up again. She hadn't planned to say that, but it was true. Over the past 3 weeks, something had changed between them. The marriage of convenience was slowly, cautiously, becoming something more. There were touches that lasted longer than necessary, glances that lingered, moments of emotional intimacy that suggested future possibilities. Ava, Liam said softly, taking her hand. There's no pressure. This marriage is what we make of it. If you want it to remain just a partnership, I can live with that. But if you want more... He hesitated, as if the next words were difficult. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it. Ava felt her heart speed up. I think about it too, she admitted. But we have time, don't we? We don't have to rush anything. Liam smiled, relieved. We have all the time in the world. That night, for the first time, Liam truly kissed Ava. Not a ceremonial kiss in front of a congregation, but something private, genuine, filled with promise. And Ava, who had spent so many years hiding her face, her heart, her entire being, finally allowed herself to be seen, completely. The weeks turned into months. Their married life found its own rhythm. Ava enrolled in an online architecture program, studying at night after full days working with Eleanor. Liam began to include her more in business decisions, valuing her unique perspective. They appeared together at events, and while there were still curious glances at Ava's scar, the couple presented such a united front that the gossip died before it could gain traction. Isabella Hayes showed up once, 6 months after the wedding. She knocked on the door of the Lockwood mansion on a rainy October afternoon, her blonde hair wet, no makeup, wearing simple clothes. Ava answered the door, and for a moment the cousins just stared at each other. Ava? Isabella said finally, her voice small. Can I come in? Ava hesitated, then stepped aside. Isabella entered, looking around the grand foyer with a complex expression. They moved to the living room, sitting in opposite chairs. Why are you here? Ava asked, keeping her voice neutral. To apologize, Isabella replied, tears in her eyes. I screwed everything up, Ava. I ran away because I was scared, because I didn't want an arranged marriage, because I thought love was everything. But love doesn't pay the bills, love doesn't keep you safe when you have nowhere to go. She wiped her eyes. Michael and I tried. We really tried to make it work. But with no money, no support, it was impossible. He left me 3 weeks ago. Ava felt a pang of compassion, but didn't let it soften her stance. And your father? He won't speak to me, Isabella said bitterly. He said I made my choice, now I have to live with the consequences. He has you now as his representative in the Lockwood family. He doesn't need me anymore." Ava took a deep breath. "Isabella, I spent years living as your shadow, being constantly reminded that I was inferior, unwanted, flawed. You never stood up for me. You never questioned how your father treated me, and now you come to me expecting what? Sympathy? A handout?" Isabella looked down. "I know I have no right to ask for anything, but you were always kinder than I deserved. I didn't expect you to save my life, Ava. I expected this." The anger Ava expected to feel didn't come. Instead, there was clarity. "I'm not going to give you money, Isabella, and I'm not going to intercede with your father for you." She paused. "But I will give you a chance no one ever gave me. I can put you in touch with job programs the Lockwood Foundation runs. I can help you find a temporary place to stay. But you will have to work. You will have to build your own life, without titles, without Hayes' family privilege." Isabella stared at her, surprised. "You'd do that, after everything?" "Not for you," Ava said honestly. "For me. Because I want to be better than the people who hurt me. Because refusing to help when I can would make me as bad as your father." Isabella started to cry for real then, sobs shaking her shoulders. "Thank you," she managed to say. "Thank you, Ava." Ava didn't comfort her, didn't hug her. She just waited for her to compose herself. Then she stood up. "I'll have someone from the foundation contact you. You'll have to go to interviews, fill out forms, follow the same rules as everyone else. There will be no special treatment because you're a Hayes." Isabella nodded, wiping her face. "I understand. And Ava," she hesitated, "I'm sorry. For everything." Ava didn't reply. She just walked Isabella to the door and watched her leave in the rain. When she closed the door, she found Liam standing in the hallway. He had heard everything. "You're extraordinary," he said, walking toward her. "I just did what I thought was right," Ava replied. Liam pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "And that's why I love you." The words hung in the air. Ava pulled back to look at him, her eyes wide. "What?" Liam smiled, but there was a nervousness in it. "I love you, Ava. I don't know when it happened exactly. Maybe it was in that sacristy when I wiped away your makeup and saw who you really were. Maybe it was watching you blossom these past few months. Or maybe somehow it started 15 years ago when I carried a little girl out of the flames. But it's true. I love you." Ava felt tears burn her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. "I love you too," she whispered. "It wasn't what I expected to feel in an arranged marriage, but I love you, Liam." He kissed her then, deeply, and she returned it with equal fervor. When they broke apart, they were both breathless. "So how about we make this official?" Liam said, a mischievous glint in his eye. "A real wedding, not just paper and contracts, but real vows. A ceremony just for us, saying what we really feel." Ava laughed, joy bubbling up in her chest. "We're already officially married, Liam." "But we didn't marry for love," he argued. "We married for fraud and corporate strategy. I want to marry you because I choose you, because I want to spend my life with you." Ava pretended to consider. "Well, I suppose I could consider marrying you again, but only if you ask properly." Liam laughed, and to Ava's utter surprise, he dropped to one knee right there in the hallway. "Ava Miller Lockwood," he said formally, but with humor dancing in his eyes. "Would you do me the extraordinary honor of marrying me again? This time because we actually want to, and not because your crazy uncle forced us into it." Ava covered her mouth, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, you idiot. Yes, I'll marry you again." Liam stood up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her back down, Ava said, "But there's one condition." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "I want to invite all the beneficiaries of the Foundation's programs. I want it to be a celebration not just of us, but of everything we're building together." She paused. "And I want it to be simple. No excessive pageantry. Just honest." Liam smiled. "Perfect. I'll start the preparations tomorrow." And so, 4 months later, in a community garden that the Lockwood Foundation had helped build in Queens, Ava and Liam renewed their vows. Eleanor cried through the whole ceremony. The guests included families who had received homes through the housing programs, children who attended the community centers, and young adults who had received vocational training. Isabella was there too, now working as an administrative assistant on one of the projects, slowly rebuilding her life. Arthur Hayes was not invited, and Ava didn't feel a single pang of guilt about it. When the local pastor asked for their vows, Ava looked into Liam's eyes and said, "I choose you, not out of obligation or pressure or business. I choose you because you make me want to be the best version of myself, because you see me not in spite of my scars, but including them, because together we are stronger than we are alone." Liam squeezed her hands. "And I choose you. The girl who survived the fire and emerged not diminished, but strengthened. The woman who turns pain into compassion, trauma into purpose. You are the part of me I forgot could exist, the part that acts out of love, not profit. I promise to honor that every day of my life." There were no 300 pairs of judging eyes this time, only looks of love, support, and genuine joy. When they kissed, the children present cheered and screamed, and Ava laughed against Liam's lips. That night, in the privacy of the bedroom they now fully shared, Ava and Liam finally consummated their marriage, not out of obligation, but out of choice, desire, and love. And Ava, lying in his arms afterward, tracing lazy patterns on his chest, finally felt whole. The scars on her face hadn't disappeared. They never would. But they no longer defined her. They were just part of her story, a story that included trauma, yes, but also survival, growth, love, and redemption. 2 years had passed since that tumultuous wedding at St. Ignatius Loyola. Ava was sitting at her desk in the home office Liam had set up for her in the mansion, reviewing architectural plans for a new housing project. She was in her final year of her architecture degree, studying concurrently while actively working on the foundation's projects. Her hair, now its natural brown, was tied in a loose bun, and she wore reading glasses that slid down her nose as she concentrated. The scar on her cheek was as visible as ever, but Ava no longer thought about it. It had become just a part of who she was, no longer a shameful secret to be, hidden. In fact, in media interviews she gave about the Foundation's social projects, her story of survival and overcoming adversity had become an inspiration to many. Letters arrived regularly from people who had been through similar traumas, thanking her for making visible what so many hid. "Ava," Eleanor called from the doorway, interrupting her concentration. "We have a visitor. It's important." Ava looked up, curious. Eleanor's tone was strange, tense. She followed her mother-in-law to the living room and stopped short in the doorway. There, sitting uncomfortably on the sofa, was Arthur Hayes. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 2. His hair was grayer, his posture less confident, his suit less impeccable. "What is he doing here?" Ava asked, her voice cold. "He asked to speak with you," Eleanor explained. "I told him you could refuse, but he insisted it was urgent. It's about Isabella." Ava's heart clenched. "Isabella, what happened to her?" Arthur stood up, his hands trembling slightly. "Please, Ava, I need 5 minutes. That's all I ask." Ava looked at Eleanor, who gave an encouraging nod. "Fine, 5 minutes, and Eleanor stays." Arthur looked like he wanted to protest, but nodded, waited for Ava to sit before he began. "Isabella is sick," he said bluntly. "Leukemia, advanced stage. The doctors say she needs an urgent bone marrow transplant." Ava felt the floor drop out from under her. "Oh, God! Isabella!" "I'm not a match," Arthur continued, his voice breaking. I've tested every relative I could find. No one is a match. But then the doctors suggested you. They said cousins have a reasonable chance of compatibility." Ava processed the information slowly. "You want me to donate my marrow?" "I'm begging you," Arthur said. And for the first time, Ava saw tears in her uncle's eyes. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know how I treated you, how I used you. But Ava, she's my daughter, my only daughter. I can't lose her." Ava felt conflicting emotions tear through her. Anger at what Arthur had done, compassion for Isabella who was trying to rebuild her life, fear of what a marrow donation would entail. "I need to think about it," she said finally. We don't have much time, Arthur pressed. The window for the transplant is closing. Every day that passes... I said I need to think, Ava repeated firmly. Give me a number where I can reach you. I'll have an answer in 24 hours. Arthur looked like he wanted to argue more, but Eleanor stood up, her posture making it clear the meeting was over. He wrote his number on a piece of paper and left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As soon as he was gone, Ava collapsed onto the sofa, her hands covering her face. Eleanor sat beside her, putting a comforting arm around her daughter-in-law's shoulders. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. "I don't know," Ava admitted. "Part of me wants to refuse immediately. Arthur doesn't deserve my help. He treated me like garbage for years. But then I think of Isabella. She's trying, really trying to become a better person, and she's my cousin, my blood." Eleanor squeezed her shoulder. "There's no easy answer here, dear. But I'll tell you this. Donating bone marrow isn't just about the person who receives it. It's about who you want to be, what kind of person you want to be when you look back on your life." Ava nodded, Eleanor's words echoing in her mind. When Liam came home that night, she told him everything. He listened in silence, holding her hand. "Whatever you decide, I will support you," he said finally. "If you choose not to do it, no one can judge you. But if you choose to do it, I will make sure you have the best doctors, the best possible care." Ava rested her head on his shoulder. "I think I already know what I'm going to do. I just needed to hear it out loud to be sure." The next morning, Ava called Arthur. "I'll do the compatibility test," she said. "If I'm a match, I'll do the donation. But there are conditions." "Anything," Arthur said quickly. "First, you will stop trying to sabotage the partnership between our companies. Second, you will publicly acknowledge what you did to me, forcing me into that wedding under threat. I don't want you to go to jail or anything, but I want the truth on the record. And third," she took a deep breath, "you will establish a fund in my mother's name. A fund that will support families affected by domestic fires, helping with medical costs, rebuilding and psychological treatment." There was silence on the other end. Then Arthur said, his voice hoarse, "You're a better person than I could ever be. I agree to all your terms." The compatibility test showed that Ava was a perfect match. The transplant was scheduled for 3 weeks later. During that time, Ava visited Isabella in the hospital. Her cousin was pale, frail, a shadow of the vibrant woman she had been. But when she saw Ava, her eyes lit up. "You didn't have to do this," Isabella whispered. "I know," Ava replied, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "But I'm doing it anyway, not for your father, for you. Because I've seen that you're really trying to change, and because, despite everything, we're still family." Isabella began to cry silently. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, Ava. I promise." Ava took her hand. "Just focus on getting well. We'll figure out the rest later." The day of the procedure arrived. Liam was by Ava's side in the hospital, holding her hand as the doctors prepped everything. Eleanor was there too, along with dozens of friends Ava had made through the Foundation's projects. The contrast with that wedding 2 years ago was stark. Then Ava had been surrounded by judging strangers. Now she was surrounded by people who truly cared. The procedure itself was relatively simple, though uncomfortable. When Ava woke up, the first thing she saw was Liam's face leaning over her, concern and love written in every line. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. "Like someone drilled into my hip," Ava joked weakly. "But okay. How's Isabella?" "The transplant went well. Now it's a matter of waiting to see if her body accepts the marrow. But the doctors are optimistic." Ava closed her eyes, relieved. In the following days, as she recovered, Ava received an unexpected visitor. Arthur Hayes appeared carrying a large envelope. He looked even older, but there was something different in his eyes, less arrogance, more humility. "I came to fulfill my part of the deal," he said, placing the envelope on the table beside her bed. "In here are all the documents establishing the fund in your mother's name. I've already deposited $500,000 to start, and I'll commit another 10% of my annual profits going forward." Ava took the envelope, leafing through the documents. "It's all in order, and the public acknowledgement." Arthur pulled a tablet from his pocket, showing a video. In it, he was sitting in his office looking directly at the camera. "My name is Arthur Hayes," he said in the video, "and I need to make a public acknowledgement of grave mistakes I have made. 2 years ago, when my daughter ran away on the eve of her arranged marriage, I panicked. Instead of honestly cancelling the ceremony, I forced my niece, Ava Miller, to take Isabella's place under threat of leaving her destitute. I used her trauma and vulnerability for my own gain. There is no excuse for my actions. Ava survived a fire that took her mother when she was a child, and I, instead of offering love and support, offered only conditions and shame. So I want to say publicly, I am sorry, Ava. You deserved so much better. And I want everyone to know that you are one of the strongest, most compassionate people I know. The way you have built your life despite everything I put you through is nothing short of extraordinary." Ava felt tears burn her eyes. The video continued with Arthur detailing the changes he would make in how he conducted his business, his commitment to more ethical practices. When it finished, Ava looked at her uncle. "You really posted that publicly?" "It went live yesterday on my corporate social media," Arthur confirmed. "It already has 500,000 views. My PR team is having a nervous breakdown, but it was necessary." He paused. "Ava, I know I can never undo what I did, but I hope that with time, maybe, you can find a way to forgive me." Ava studied his face for a long moment. "Forgiveness isn't something you give all at once, Uncle. It's something you build, with consistent actions over time. You've taken the first step. Keep taking more steps and maybe eventually we'll get there." Arthur nodded, accepting this. "I will. And Ava, thank you for saving Isabella, for being a better person than I deserved for you to be." After he left, Liam returned to the room. "I saw the video," he commented. "You did? Half of New York probably has by now." Liam sat on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling about it?" Ava thought for a moment. "Strangely at peace. He can't undo the past, but he's trying to do better in the future. That's all I can really ask for." The following weeks were tense as they waited to see if Isabella's body would accept the transplant. There were complications at first, moments when it seemed it might not work, but Isabella was a fighter. Slowly, gradually, she began to improve. The doctors declared the transplant a success. Ava was there when Isabella was discharged from the hospital 3 months later. Her cousin was still frail, would need ongoing monitoring, but she was alive. When they hugged, Isabella whispered, "You gave me a second chance at life, Ava. I'm not going to waste it." 6 months after the transplant, Ava defended her senior thesis in architecture, a project for sustainable housing development in low-income communities. Liam was in the front row, clapping louder than anyone when she finished her presentation. Eleanor was there too, as was Isabella, her short hair now growing back after chemotherapy, but with colour returning to her cheeks. That night, there was a celebration at the Lockwood mansion. Friends, colleagues, beneficiaries of the Foundation's projects, all gathered to celebrate. Ava wore a simple but elegant dress, her hair down over her shoulders, the scar visible and accepted. Liam never left her side, pride evident in every glance. In the middle of the party, Liam asked for everyone's attention. He raised his champagne glass, waiting for the room to quiet. "I want to make a toast," he announced. 2.5 years ago, I married a woman I barely knew. It was a marriage of convenience, strategy, even fraud in a sense. He smiled at Ava. But over these years, that marriage has become the most real, most true, most important thing in my life. Ava felt tears threaten. Liam continued, "Ava has taught me that strength isn't in never falling, but in getting up every time you fall. That beauty isn't perfect skin, but the courage to show our imperfections. That family isn't blood, but who we choose to love and support. So I want to toast to my extraordinary wife, the brilliant architect, the dedicated philanthropist, the love of my life. And," he paused, "babies need time to grow, to the future mother of our children." The room exploded in applause and exclamations. Ava looked at Liam, her eyes wide. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying," Liam confirmed with a huge grin, "that you're pregnant. The doctor confirmed it this morning while you were at your thesis defense. I asked him to call me first so I could surprise you." Ava brought a hand to her stomach. still flat, but carrying new life. Tears streamed freely down her face now. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," Liam repeated, pulling her into his arms. The room erupted in celebration again, music starting back up, people offering congratulations. Later that night, when the guests had left and the mansion was quiet, Ava and Liam were in their room lying in bed. Ava traced lazy circles on her stomach, marveling at the life growing there. "Do you think I'll be a good mother?" she asked softly. Liam kissed her forehead. "You'll be extraordinary. Our children will have the strongest, most compassionate, most loving mother they could ever ask for." "What if they inherit my scar?" Ava said, not referring to the physical mark but to the insecurities she had carried. "What if they go through what I went through?" "Then we'll teach them," Liam answered firmly, "that scars, whether they're physical, emotional, or any other kind, don't define them. They're just part of their story. And every story, no matter how difficult, can have a happy ending if we refuse to give up." Ava turned to face him. "How did I end up so lucky after all? From an invisible cousin forced into a fake marriage to this, to you, to real love, to a real family." Liam smiled, pulling her closer. "I think fate has a sense of humor. Or maybe," he said more seriously, "maybe everything we went through was necessary to get us to this moment. The hardships, the challenges, even the fraud of the wedding. It all shaped us to be able to appreciate what we have now." Ava nodded, snuggling against his chest. "You're right. I wouldn't change a thing, because changing anything would mean not ending up here with you." They lay in silence for a moment, just enjoying each other's presence. Then Ava said, "You know, that teenager who saved me from the fire 15 years ago probably never imagined he'd be here, married to me, expecting our first child." Liam chuckled softly. "I definitely didn't, but now I can't imagine being anywhere else." The following months were a roller coaster of emotions. Ava's pregnancy was relatively smooth, though she continued working on foundation projects almost until the end. Isabella, now officially in remission, became a constant presence, helping with baby preparations, eager to be the best aunt possible. Even Arthur made efforts to redeem himself. He kept all the promises he had made, and slowly, very slowly, began to rebuild a relationship with Ava. It would never be close or warm, but it was at least respectful. He would ask about her life, her work, the pregnancy, and actually seem interested in the answers. When Ava went into labor on a December night, Liam was by her side every second, holding her, hand encouraging her, never letting her feel she was alone. Eleanor was in the waiting room, as was Isabella. Even Arthur showed up, staying in the background but present. After 12 hours of labor, a loud cry filled the delivery room. Liam cut the umbilical cord with hands trembling with emotion, and then the nurse placed the baby in Ava's arms. "A girl," the nurse announced, "a beautiful, healthy baby girl." Ava looked at her daughter, wrapped in a pink blanket, and felt a love so intense it hurt. The little one had dark eyes like her parents, a tuft of brown hair and a serious expression even in her sleep. "What are we going to name her?" Liam asked, sitting on the edge of the bed, unable to take his eyes off his daughter. Ava already knew. She had decided months ago, but wanted to wait until she saw the baby's face to be sure. "Sophia Eleanor Lockwood. Sophia for hope and wisdom. Eleanor in honor of the grandmother who gave me the family I always deserved." Liam kissed Ava softly. "Perfect. Sophia Eleanor Lockwood. Welcome to the world, little one." When Eleanor was allowed in, she cried, as she held her granddaughter for the first time. Isabella cried too, marveling at the little life that indirectly existed because Ava had chosen to save her. Even Arthur, when it was his turn to hold Sophia, had tears in his eyes. The following years were filled with the joys and challenges typical of parenthood. Sophia grew into a curious and determined child, much like her mother. Ava and Liam had 2 more children, a boy they named Gabriel, and another girl, Laura. The Lockwood mansion filled with laughter, games, and love. Ava continued her work with the foundation, now focusing on creating educational programs for children in underserved communities. Her unique perspective, as someone who had experienced both poverty and privilege, made her extraordinarily effective. Liam remained her partner in everything, supporting every initiative, every project, every dream. Isabella found purpose working with leukemia patients, offering support and hope based on her own experience. She never married, choosing to dedicate her life to making a difference, a way of honoring the second chance she had been given. And Arthur, in the final years of his life, became a surprising advocate for ethical business practices. He never became perfect, never fully erased what he had done, but he tried, and in the end, that was all Ava had asked of him, a genuine effort to be better. 10 years after that chaotic wedding, Ava stood in the same community garden where she and Liam had renewed their vows. But this time she was there to inaugurate something new, the Maria Miller Community Center, named in honor of her mother. The center would offer support to families affected by tragedy, educational aid, and mental health resources. Liam stood beside her, holding the hand of Sophia, now 9 years old. Gabriel, 7, and Laura, 5, played nearby under Eleanor's watchful eye. Isabella was there too, now officially working for the foundation, leading patient support programs. When Ava cut the ribbon, officially opening the center, she looked around at all the people gathered. People she had helped, people who had helped her, people who had become family not by blood, but by choice. 15 years ago, she began, addressing the crowd. I lost my mother in a terrible fire. I was left with a scar I would carry forever. For many years I saw that scar as something to hide, something to be ashamed of. But I've learned that our scars, whether physical or emotional, are not weaknesses. They are proof that we survived. They are reminders that we are stronger than we thought we were. She paused, wiping away tears that had begun to fall. This center is dedicated to all the people carrying invisible scars, to all the families who have lost homes in fires, to all the children growing up in difficult situations, to all the people who have been told they weren't good enough, pretty enough, worthy enough. You are, you always were, and I hope this space can be a reminder of that. The applause was deafening. Liam squeezed her hand, pride shining in his eyes. Sophia hugged her mother's leg. And Ava, looking around at everything she had built, all the lives she had touched, everyone she loved, finally understood completely the truth it had taken her years to accept. She didn't have to be perfect to be enough. She already was, and always had been, exactly who she was meant to be. That night, back at the mansion, Ava put the children to bed and then joined Liam on the terrace overlooking New York City. The city glittered below them, millions of lights representing millions of stories. Any regrets? Liam asked, wrapping his arm around her. Ava leaned against him, thinking of everything she had lived through, the fire that took her mother, the years of invisibility at Arthur's house, the forced marriage that became true love, the challenges, the victories, the children now sleeping safely in their rooms. None, she answered honestly. Not a single one. Because everything, absolutely everything, led me here. To you, to our family, to the life we built together. Liam kissed her softly. Then here's to it, he toasted with the wineglass he held. To stories that begin with tragedy but end in triumph, to scars that make us stronger, to loves that save us, and to extraordinary women who turn shams into fairy tales. Ava laughed, picking up her own glass. And to men who walk through fire, literally and metaphorically, to save the ones they love. They clinked their glasses, the sound soft in the New York night. And there, under the stars, 2 years and an eternity after that chaotic wedding, Ava and Liam Lockwood simply existed together, grateful for the past that had shaped them, present in the moment they shared, and hopeful for the future they were still writing. One day, one choice, one act of love at a time.